If you're a team in need of a center, there may be a really good one that's hitting the market potentially this offseason. That's Jarret Allen. We're going to talk all about it. But first, make sure you stick around and subscribe because 80% of viewers here on the Basketball Bulletin, where Trevor and I cover the entire NBA, are not subscribed. So make sure you do subscribe to the channel going forward. And let me know in the comments down below, would you be interested in a Jarret Allen on your team, whatever team that is, of course, listening to you, of course, whoever you are. All right, on top of that, though, we are going to transition afterwards into some Jrue Holiday stuff. So there's some Jrue Holiday news as well. We'll cover later on. But first things first, there's also potentially a guard on the market. Who knows? Darius Garland and Jarret Allen are not considered untouchable in Cleveland. I think the two untouchables are Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. I have been getting the sense that the Cavs would be willing to entertain and at least consider possibilities for Allen and Garland that they have not in the past. So the first thing I want to say on this topic is if I'm the Cavs, I'm running it back. I mean, you just came off of such a great season. I think the East is extremely wide open, especially with Boston dropping out. Regardless of who wins this year, I think that you would still be positioned as one of the best teams in the East. Now, the problem is, and has been for the Cavs, is that they've been really good in the regular season the last couple of years and then fizzling out and not been able to extend that to the playoffs. And, Garland, people talk about him. He's not particularly a playoff riser. He's had some wonky series and stuff. He was hurt this last time, but, in general. But, I think that still, regardless, you keep that thing going. You got that chemistry for the last few years with Donovan and all that. I think you try to keep things going unless you feel like there's no way. And this is the caveat, unless you feel there's no way it could work. There are some questions, like I said, about the viability of some of the players in the playoffs. There's that. And then also, a reason not to do it is I'm curious about the backcourt. Like two small guards in the backcourt doesn't typically translate well. So we'll see what happens with that ultimately. But on the Jarret Allen piece, if you're a team in need of a center, Allen is an interesting pickup for sure if he is actually out there on the market. Because I do think that whatever the Cavs decide to do, let's say they do make trades, they've got the right idea. I think Mobley and Donovan are the two you try to build around from there. And I think that's an all-star pairing. Then you would be really good for a long time with those two as your main two centerpieces. In terms of Allen, though, so here's a look at some statistics for Allen. He's been pretty healthy the last couple of years, but I think he's missed about 100 games, give or take, in his NBA career, which spans about 8 years. So, there's been some checkered past in there a little bit, but he's a good rim protector, solid rebounder, very big body, lob catcher, all that stuff. Basically the prototypical center that you would have if you're not looking for a spacing center, right? Like basically everything you would want out of a center. Typically plays about 28 minutes per game, starts most of the games he plays. Career number of 64% from the field. Career high this year at 70%. Took 8 attempts per game, which is also the career field goal attempts. He has a little bit more in his game. Like every now and again, you'll see him flash other things, but typically is relegated to taking mostly just those lobs or dump off finishes around the basket. That's what he's going to mainly do for you. And as a result, he'll average 13 or so points is what he did this year, with less field goals, but higher percentage, of course. But, he typically will give you about that, maybe up to 16. He had that last season for the Cavs. In terms of like his blocking numbers, he averages 1.2 for his career, but again, only plays 28 minutes. Rebounding, solid rebounding, and 9 right there. So that's pretty good too, or 10, I guess, 9 for the career. Not really a playmaking center, gives you about 1.9, but I've seen him throw some nice passes. He can flash it. Once again, like I said, he's one of those guys that's got a few different things in there that they don't really rely on him so much for. But let's say, like, theoretically, a team like the Lakers, who have been rumored to be heavily in on a center, I think he's the type of guy that you would want to get and pair alongside a Luka Doncic. I think that they're a prototypical fit. I think they would fit amazingly for years to come. He's 26. He's on, or 27, I believe now. Anyway, he's on the Luka timeline and all that stuff. I think it would work perfectly. Now, the tricky thing is, where's the salary coming from? How are you matching the salary? He's making $20 million here. That's not the hardest number to match. In fact, it's extremely affordable. He may be a little underpaid at $20 million, but it does balloon to 32, which is probably closer to where he would probably be making. I think 30 is about starting money now. 27-ish is about starter money now. So he's just a smidge underpaid, I think. But regardless, 20 million isn't the hardest thing to match. And I think that a lot of teams can come up with the amount to do that. A lot of teams have guys that are like 18 or so, and you just can trade that player basically to get that done. And if you're the Lakers, particularly, what are you trying to trade in this deal? You're trying to flip somebody like Gabe Vincent, Maxey, maybe put salary with that. You're not really trying to give up Austin, but the thing is they would probably ask for an Austin. But the problem with getting an Austin is you would be putting him in a back, assuming they're not planning on moving Garland anyway. You'd be putting him in a backcourt with undersized guards, and it's extremely redundant with Garland. I just don't think they would do it. But we have a lot of Laker fans, so I wanted to approach it from that perspective. But Allen would be great on the Lakers, of course, with Luka, and again on the Luka timeline. So let me know what you guys think about that, and if that's something that you guys would be interested in. He may be the best center available this offseason. We did hear about the Suns. If you're a Suns fan, interested in getting a new center to be the lead center for them as well. So moving on from that, let's cover Jrue Holiday. So we had some interesting stuff about Jrue. We've talked about how like the Celtics, and that recently came out as well, when they got eliminated, that they're going to be looking to make trades and shake things up. They're in a weird spot because they won that chip, and then, decided to just re-sign everybody, all that stuff, or some of that stuff I think happened before then. But regardless, they re-signed everybody is the point at these high salary numbers that we knew when they did it. It's like, there's no way you're going to be able to keep this team together because that's just too much money going elsewhere. So a couple of things have happened in the new CBA. Firstly, salaries continue to rise, right? But with the aprons on, it's basically an artificial limit up to what you can spend. So the roster building is kind of weird. Like, it's kind of hard to have even 2 max players on your contracts on your books with contracts, which the Celtics have. And then how do you pay? Because salaries have gone up. You're paying guys like a Jrue, like a Derek White, like a Porzingis. All these guys are worth $30 million in the current landscape, right? Give or take a few million, but they're in that range. Like I was just telling you, I think starter money nowadays is about 27 plus. And all those guys are starting caliber players, fringe all-star, whatever you want to say. So when you've got 5-6 of them guys, it's just kind of hard. And the Celtics are in that position. It's great to have the depth, but they probably have to move some of the guys. And with Tatum being out, it's probably just a gap year this year anyway for them. Holiday winds up being a guy that's probably on the move. Holiday is expected to be pursued by several teams on the trade market, and a league source tells Mass Live that the Clippers are one team expected to show interest in the 34-year-old guard this offseason. I would actually like him a lot for the Clippers. I think he'd be a great fit. The funny thing about Holiday is I think he'd be a great fit nearly anywhere. He's not somebody that like you can say, oh, we need to have a specific type around him. He is the quintessential like glue guy. Like he is somebody that just goes out there, plays his role. He can hit the shot for you if you need him to. He can make a little bit. He plays all-world defense out there for you. I think he's a little bit worse at it as he's gotten a little bit older, but that's to be expected. But I think he's still great at it, of course. He can get you some boards. He can do a little bit of everything out there. And I think he's perfectly capable of being off the ball too, which is what you would want in a lot of locations like a LA where they've got James Harden on the ball. They run the ball through Kawhi a good bit as well. Like I think he'd be fine as your secondary or third, just a playmaker out there as well. So I think he'd be great there. A couple of other teams I would consider. Like I said, I think he could fit anywhere, but I think he'd also be great in Dallas. Dallas should be trying to make a all-in push. I think all in is relative. You don't want to put everything on the table, right? Like you're not offering first rounds and also, okay, you know what I'm saying? You're trying to pull off a Jrue Holiday trade. Let me dial it back a little bit. I think he'd be great there. I think he'd be amazing for what they're trying to do. Also, they've got this thing where they want to have somebody that can help run the show until Kyrie comes back, but also be capable of being a secondary guy when Kyrie comes back and resumes lead ball handler duties. And I think he fits that perfectly. There's some other guys out there that are a little bit more of a question mark, like Alonzo Ball, that I think, they could be trying to target as well, that could fill a similar role. But I think you've just got and the funny thing about Jrue for Dallas specifically, he's a Nico style guy, defense wins champions. And Nico apparently really on 2K, you can skew that meter towards young or old in like your coach settings or whatever. Nico's got the dial all the way on old, right? Like, so a 34-year-old defense first guard, I think, is perfect. And then we've talked about how with the Luka trade, Dallas has a humongous, because Luka is just that ball dominant, that much of a playmaker, all that stuff. That's not a knock on him, of course, but they've got a Luka-sized hole there in terms of playmaking. And they tried to do it a little bit by committee, but when Kyrie went down, it just wasn't going to work. And Kyrie's going to be gone for such a big chunk of the next year. They've got to find a way to tide over that gap. And I think that Jrue, again, could be one of the ways that they can do that. But there are some other guys like Alonzo, like a Dennis, things like that. But I think all the contenders, really, I think all the contenders that within reason anyway can offer a decent package here should be trying to swing for a Jrue Holiday, because he's the type of guy that could put you over. He's the type of guy, I mean, kind of had that happen here, right? Like Boston swung for a Jrue Holiday and win the championship. He's the type of guy that can put you over. I think that there are going to be teams that are like, man, we were so close, this and that. Maybe matchups got you eliminated earlier than you should have been, but you were close, and maybe a Jrue Holiday is the type of guy that you would look forward to plug into your team and will take you to the next level, like I was saying. So ultimately, let me know what you guys think about these players. There's a couple of really interesting ones here. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and subscribe. And if you haven't seen it, click on the video right now on the screen where we talk about some fun off-season stuff.